Hey everyone, Ekman here with another video. And today we've got a top 32 breakdown for the Top Cut events Peoria regionals from this past weekend. There were just under 1,000 players, 10 rounds of Swiss best of 1 into a top 32 cut day 2 best of 3. And real quick before we get started, first, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We make a lot of One Piece content and we're going to continue in the future as well. Also, if you want any of the deck lists from today's video, you can find them on my website, Eggman Events. I have all top 32 here on the page right now, and I've been doing a pretty good job at keeping up to date for the meta in general for the OP10 meta of the One Piece card game. So there also was another regionals this past weekend in Paris where I don't have all the deck lists as of recording, but I'm going to be trying my best. They are on the deck list table though, so you can check that out. We do have the top 4 and a couple additional decks from there, so make sure to check it out if you haven't already. And I should be trying to get a couple more in the next couple days and probably making a video this week too if I get enough of them as well. But for this event, we do have the details of it being this past weekend, so April 19th to 20th, 974 players, again 10 rounds of Swiss into a top 32 cut. And of that top 32, we do have 10 copies of Shanks, 7 copies of Teach, 4 copies of Monkey.D.Luffy, the purple one, 2 Dofi, 2 Usopp, 2 Zoro, 2 Rob Lucci, 2 Lim, and a single Rebecca as well. And we do have the leader breakdown. I do appreciate Top Cut helping me get this, as well as Chippy helping me get the data for this one too. But we do see honestly a good amount of decks just spread across. We do see Shanks at just under 200 copies across the tournament here. Purple Luffy, Teach, the Dofi, and Zoro being the top 5 leaders and like kind of 50% of the meta itself. But generally a really good spread from what we've been expecting from this meta. There's a lot of different leaders that I think are viable, and it's really cool to see so many people just being able to choose the leader that they're most confident with, or the leader they feel is going to win, I guess, still. So we do also, I think the only kind of down converts that I see immediately is that we do have Yellow, Eustace Kid, and the Bonnie both being moderately, popular leaders, but neither of them getting in the top 32. So I think that is some good data for that one. It's also interesting to see like Shanks get, less than 25% of the meta, but almost get like a third of the top cut as well, which is a very good convert for this one. Even though it was like the most popular leader, just being able to get that much in the top 32 is pretty good. And also Teach too. Teach being able to have almost 25% of the meta, even though it was only, just under 100 copies of it in this event too. So anyways, we are going to go over the top placing leader for each one of these leaders as well in this top 32. If there's any leaders deck lists you want to see, you can again find them here on my website, Eggman Events, and let's just jump on into it. So for first place, we do have Jerry with their version of the Purple Luffy, and Purple Luffy's been doing pretty good here in North America. It did end up winning the Virginia event that happened this past weekend, and now it won this one as well. So two of the mainland USA regionals, Purple Luffy's been able to get there. So it hasn't changed a lot from where it was in OP09. We didn't really get any supports. More so, I think that it just gets the benefit from what the post restriction list meta looks like here in North America, or in the English version of it. We do have a couple of tech cards that I don't normally see in this deck right now too. Generally speaking, we do have the Tony Chopper. This one I've been seeing, some play here and there. End of your turn, you return one or more Dawn cards from your field to your Dawn deck. You get to set this character as active, and then if this character gets blocker too. So just being like a 5/6 blocker is pretty good, I think, in this meta right now. You do have to lose a Dawn, which I think with Purple Luffy is a little bit more expensive than a leader such as like the Red Purple Luffy, but it is in I think a good spot for what this meta is. I will say that I would be a little bit nervous about playing this card because I know a lot of decks are running 5/6 hate cards because that's just a really popular stat line in this current meta. But I think this is still a good card for the deck and can be a backup copy of something you play off your Luffy Taro if you don't have anything better. So I think it's like a solid choice if you don't have any more Zoros or Songoros to be able to play out of your hand. So other card that I don't see as often is the Blast Breath. Obviously we do have like the best event in the game for purple that we're able to use, which is the Gum Gum Giant. We won't have to talk about how good this card is, right? But having like a 5th backup copy for the card I don't think is that terrible of an idea. There's also I think some weird scenarios too where either your hand is in an okay spot, or for example you're at 10 Dawn and then you use your Tony Chopper effect to go down to 9. You don't want to go down to 7 Dawn, right? Instead of using Blast Breath to go down to 8 and then you start your turn at 10 again, I think it'd be really helpful. But I've been seeing like a lot of Blast Breath just being a really good spot. It's clearly better when your opponent's not expecting a vent to give you plus 4k for the turn, but I think this is something that is like a good backup copy. Despite how much card search and draw, I sometimes can't find Gum Gum Giant to save me. So having like a 5th bonus copy, I think, can be helpful for those scenarios too. So other than that, I don't have much more to say. And congratulations to Jerry for their first place finish with the purple Luffy. The next up, we've got Shanks. So this is Quan's version of the deck here. And there's so many versions of Shanks right now. You can look through all top 10 or all 10 in the top 32 on the site too. And there's just a variety of like more of like the Nami build, being able to have like Straw Hat Searchers. We have like the Uta build for more of the Red Hawk. We do have, or for the Red Hair Pirates, we do have like the No Searchers too. You just hard draw everything you need to find for your deck, and it's really like whatever you feel at this point. I don't think any of the builds feel better than others. If I was to play a build, I probably would be focusing a little bit more on the Straw Hat stuff, just because I do really appreciate having the early turn and early game. I think Sanji is still like a incredible card. It is also one of the only cards in red, despite being in set 10, that says draw 1 in it, which is crazy that it's this far into the game, and this is like one of the few cards that we have that says that, but can be really good for applying pressure in the early game or getting some board trades, which really helps you be at a healthy life total and card total in hand when you're trying to play your 8 and 10 drops here. So you'll also notice that there are no copies of 10 cost Shanks, which I think is wild to see that, right? I think that's generally been such a strong card for this deck, but this is more of like an aggressive build for it, so that kind of makes sense from there. So instead we are playing 8 copies of the Monkey-D Dragon, which if your opponent's not expecting this card to come down on a turn, being able to go 7k and 9k at 2 spots, usually at your opponent's life, is really tough, especially played on curve. So I think that's impactful. And then we do have our removal. We have 4 Beckman, 2 copies of Edward Newgate, which you don't generally see this one as much in the deck, but it is very good for removal. And then also the Silver's Rayleigh, and 1 copy of Goldie Roger, and that is the build there. So one of the more unique ones. It is more aggressive building too, since we do have, again, a lot of the rush from the Dragon, but also the Monkey-D.Luffy. This card's fantastic. I think this is really good in this meta still. Just being able to see this come down at 5 Dawn and be like, man, I have to answer this, or it swings again for 7, or like get some crazy math on some other situations, right? There's also like a lot of situations where attacking for 6 and then attacking with your leader for 6 just means your opponent has to have a 2k, and if you don't, you get a lot of advantage for it. So I think that's strong. And yeah, it's just a really interesting build. So lastly, we don't normally see this 1-drop Chopper, but for some reason I feel like having 2 blockers out in this meta, there's a lot of decks that really can't answer 2. They really need 1 or less for that. So being able to like double drop these Chopper in like the mid to late game can get some good advantage for it too. So not much more to say, but congratulations to Quan for their 2nd place finish with Shanks. And then next up, we've got Marshall.D.Teach. So we've got 2 copies of it. We've got Arnold's and Joshua's version of the deck here. And mostly speaking, there's kind of like 2 kind of build changes right now that I see in Teach. And mostly it comes around the idea of, do you play the I bid 500 million, right? You can read this card. There's a lot of text on it, but essentially the only thing you really care about is the trigger for it for most matchups, right? You get to KO up to one of your opponent's cost 6 or lower characters, or return it to its owner's hand. So the fact that this card has a trigger that lets you interact with 6 cost is insane. Generally, that is a little bit tough to do, right? We do have like the Finger Pistol, which is able to interact with a 5 or less, which is pretty good for, again, this meta where we have so many decks run these really good 5 costs. So being able to interact with that is really fantastic. But also I think it's really good for the mirror match as well. Being able to use something like Von Augur on top of using I bid 500 million to be able to interact with your opponent's copies of the Gigius Burgess is really good. Generally speaking, we don't have a lot of ways to interact with it, so I think that's very strong. So which is why I think both players are playing that. We do see that a little bit less often for, I think, Joshua's, but we're only playing 1 copy of Von Augur. But if we are able to like Kuzan into it or what have you, we can get that interaction. We do also have that last ad of like a single liberation, which being able to get some board. I've been seeing like less and less people use this card, to be honest. There are some times where it can get some really good double clears, right? Like be like a mini Gravity Blade, if you want to think of it that way. way, but it's been a card that I haven't been seeing as often compared to others. So other than that, I think that this deck is still very good, very consistent, which is a key point I think in this meta. There are ways to build around it, and there are ways to interact with it, or and it still has bad matchups too, but it's definitely not. I don't think it's tier 0, which some people, including myself, at some points thought that Teach could be there for this meta, but it's just been, I think, a very strong ad for this current meta as well. So these are, again, Arnold's and Joshua's builds, and congratulations for their finish for this event. Breaking into the top 8, we've got Billy's version of the Rob Lucci, and this was, again, a leader that a lot of people, including myself, thought was not going to be very present in this meta with the restriction of the Gecko Moria as well as the Ice Age, but this leader just keeps showing up, right? The fact that we still have a really good card pool of interaction, of removal, and generally speaking, I think without those cards in the deck, we have a good excuse to be better into the Teach matchup because we're running cards like Kaido at 2 copies, which can either get rid of a Burgess or also can get rid of the 10 cost Teach. I think that's something that's very strong for this deck in particular. So I do think that Rob Lucci's in a good spot. I do like these builds here that have just an additional amount of cost reduction, right? So we see like Laboon, which is not too wild of a choice right now, but we also see 2 copies of Uta, which there are some decks that really can't get rid of this card very easily. If you're only playing like 1 body a turn, right, and you are removing that body every turn, on the flip side, your opponent leader can attack into this, right? They can attack into it, but they can't remove it by battle, right? So the fact that this is kind of like a mini Innis Lobby, right? A more removable Innis Lobby, but still very obnoxious to deal with. I think this just gets a lot of value for what it is, which is really strong. So other than that, with the general stuff that Rob Lucci, the core, right? We've got Rebecca, we've got Hina, and we've got the Brook. We also have the Spandine to be able to use our crazy combos of, we have 1 card in hand. Well, it's Rebecca. We use it to play Spandine, and we use that to play either the Khalifa, Kaku, or the Rob Lucci, which this card still gets a lot of good removal potential in this meta, which is really good. And then lastly, we've got like Sabo and Jack. I've been seeing less and less people on Jack, specifically in this meta. It was obviously a really powerful card, I think, in OP09 and before. Just the fact that you can play Jack on 7, and then on 9, you're able to play Gecko Moria, play a lot of cost reduction, and then use Jack to remove a body was really good. There were some really good situations for that, but without you having like a big like cost reduction card to play after Jack, I do find that it's just been a little bit less valuable in this current meta. I still think the card is strong, but it's one that I haven't been seeing as much play in Rob Lucci's builds in the last couple weeks too. So not much more to say though, but congratulations to Billy for their finish with Rob Lucci. The next up, we've got Doflamingo. So this is Elan's version of Elan's version of the build here for this one. We generally know what Doflamingo looks like, I think, in this meta, especially with a post Jinbei meta that we have right now. We do know a lot of the key cards are still just really good in this deck. Jinbei being gone just means we have a little bit more room for some tech cards. It does mean like if we have to blind use our leader effect, we're a little bit less successful, but that still means that we generally don't do that unless we have to. I do see a couple of tech cards that I generally don't see in this deck. One is the 10-drop Kaido. This is generally just kind of a good way to help us refill our board in the late game, or our hand rather, in the late game. On play, if your opponent has 3 or less life, which they generally will by turn 10 dawn for you, you get to draw 4 cards, which I was talking about how like the Sanji, like, drawing 1 is so rare in red. Blue has so many draw cards, right? And draw 4 is like a ridiculous amount of cards, especially in a deck like this where we don't generally run that many bricks in hand. In deck, we're only running 15. So that being able to refill our hand and give us just something to do on our 10 dawn is can help you just win a lot of matchups that kind of grind out more into the late game. And some decks really can't efficiently answer a 10 drop 12k, right? That being said, that's the same stats of Teach, so there are some decks that are targeting that stat line, right? Especially like in the mirror match, you can just red rocket away. But even if you do red rocket, right, the fact that you're able to use that to get 4 additional cards, I think is very, very strong. So lastly, we've got 3000 Worlds. I've been seeing this pop up a little bit. I will say it's a little bit unfortunate that this only the trigger for this effect only interacts with 3 or less, right? If it interacted with, I think, 4 or lesses, I think this trigger would be insane. But without that, it's not as powerful as I think that other kind of events in the spot, right? We do only cost 4, but this obviously, like, bottom decks of 4 or less, Gravity Blade, 5 or less, right? So being able to hit a 5 or less is really fantastic in this meta too. But it's what it is. So like Doflamingo still, we have such a strong core of the good 7 warlords, right? Most of Weevil, Law, Boa, generally I think it was always going to be at 4 copies. We have a couple decisions on our 2Ks of between Croc and Mihawk. Most people I think are playing 4 copies of Moria, especially with Jinbei out of the meta. I think this has been the default runner-up Jinbei for ratio wise for most people, and then our 2Ks, and I think most people are on 4 copies of Teach right now too. So not much more to say, but congratulations to Elan for their finish with Doflamingo. Next up we've got Zoro. So this is Clayton's version of the build here. And, there was like a little bit of discussion into the beginning of the format if the animal version was still the better version of Zoro, or if we can go back to more of like the rush builds of it, right? And so far, from what I've been seeing from this weekend, most versions of Zoro that did top was more of this animal leaning build for the deck, right? Like you can have a little bit of overlap, right? There's a decision point if like 3-drop Zoro is in the deck. I think I've seen a lot of animal builds that don't run it, right? But this is still like a precursor to more of like the rush heavy build. So, but I think like generally speaking that the 3-drop 2020 Chopper gets still a lot of value in this format, right? With Rob Lucci and Doflamingo at lower numbers than usual, being able to play this card and have a moderately good chance for it to stick on board is really nice. The fact that you can really high roll with cards like the Just Shut Up and Come With Us, I think is very, very strong. And the deck, if you hit your good stuff by like turn 3, generally speaking, there's a lot of decks that can answer the amount of aggression that you can put out all at once. So I think that's very, very strong. I do think that we've been seeing like a couple of like weird choices here and there for some builds, but generally speaking, I think this is just really solid for what we've been expecting for this deck too. So I don't honestly have a lot to talk about. I think it's pretty understood for what the Zoro does and what the build looks like too. And I think it's very strong in this current meta too. So this is the build here from Clayton, and congratulations for their top with Zoro. Then moving on, we do have Lim. So we've got 2 different builds. We've got David's and Samuel's version of the build here. They both got top 32, and there's some good differences with it, right? We do have kind of like the more popular, at least last week, right? We did see Fletchy get a first place finish in Europe last weekend with this more devil fruit version of this deck. I have to say this every time. The reason that you play this card is that you can use Orochi to find it from your deck, so you do retain your hand advantage. It's something that you can discard later with Enel, because Enel's a really, really good card. And then afterwards, like you can also kind of see what cards are in your deck and cards that are not in your deck, as long as you respect the TRM for how long you can search through your deck. And that's just been like a really good ad for a lot of people to try to just make the deck a little bit better. Obviously, it's also just a 1-drop that you can play out of your hands, because sometimes you do need to be able to play another body for some of your effects, because you have to have rested cards, and that can just be a strong one for in that regard too. So other than that, we do kind of have just a really strong core of cards from this, specifically the new set, right? Edward Newgate, as well as the Enel. And the Mihawk, most people I've seen play these at 4 copies. They've been very, very strong. A lot of people are playing Sakazuki as one of our better cards for this meta too. I was kind of talking about how 5 costs have been just one of the strongest and most present card stat line right now. So being able to have Sakazuki interact with those for really no cost, right? You do have to pay 6 Dawn for it, which is a little bit expensive for this deck, but we do, ramp up to it very quickly. Is really nice. It does mean like, unless we're at 9 Dawn, it's very tough for us to be able to play 2 bodies out, since we can't play this card off of our leader, which is fair. I think if we could play this off of our leader, this deck would be super broken. So other than that, we do have one additional ad that I don't see as often, which is Electric Luna. So this being able to stun a board is really good, since we are in that green side of it, which is really, really nice. We are also running Blast Breath, which I really do think this card is fantastic in this deck. We really don't care about the Dawn -1, and it's very easy for us to leave a Dawn open, especially since we do something like we want to play 2 5 costs for the turn. So 1, we play play one off our leader effect. We play one for 5, and then we have 2 additional Dawn to either like leave 2 open for Blast Breath, if we have more than 1 copy in the deck, or if we want to be able to, attack 6k with something and then use Blast Breath. I think all of those are very viable too. So other than that, I've been personally really enjoying Lim in these last couple weeks. It wasn't a deck that I was a believer for in this format on day 1, but it's something that I've come around with, and I've been really happy with it. So this is the build here from David, and then we also have Samuel's build, which is, I'd say, a little bit more unique from builds that we've seen previously. We're not playing any events. We're also not playing Orochi. We're instead playing the Scratch Mana Poo, which, again, is another 2k that we can play in this deck, but also is just like another 1-drop that gets an effect on play. So there are some weird scenarios. If you're playing against like Doflamingo, we need to get rid of Teach, or if we need to get rid of like a 1-drop blocker, which again have been very present in this format, a Poo you can use to get some additional value in that situation and also get another body on the board. If you have like an empty board, right, you can play a Poo on 1, and then you can do something like you can play out like a Nell, and then you get the card draw or something. So that's very strong. So other than that, we do have a Deo. I do know this card is really expensive right now. If I don't think this card is needed in this deck inherently. If you have a couple copies, you probably play it. But there are other 2Ks that are Odyssey type that you can play instead. And then we do see additional 5 costs. So we see Carrot as well as the Smoker. I think I've definitely tried with Smoker for this deck. And primarily, if you are going second, this does help your second curve a little bit more. The fact that this is also a 7k means that it gets out of Beckman in the Shanks matchup, which is really important. But if we are at 7 Dawn, which if we go second, we will be on turn 3, we will be able to do something like play Smoker, use Smoker's activate main to get a Dawn back, and then play out a 5 cost off of our leader effect. So that is very strong, and then it makes it difficult for opponent to interact with the Smoker that will continue to get that extra Dawn every turn. So I do think that's a good card. Potentially. I've tried it out personally and not been the hugest fan, but when we're playing this build where we're only playing 10 cards without any counter, where it's just 2 Smokers, 4 copies of Sakazuki, and then the Lim, like you can kind of afford to play like more like traditionally brick cards, especially since again a Nell can just fix your hand. Like draw 3, trash 2 is such a good amount of consistency in this game, like unheard of in a lot of ways. So not much more to say, but congratulations to both David and Samuel for their finishes with Lim. And then next up we've got Usopp. So we've got 2 different builds here. We've got Christopher's and Boris's build here, and by different I mean the exact same cards with minor ratio changes, right? We see on Chris's side we're playing 4 copies of Cav, and instead on Boris's side, what's the card where, I think an extra Sabo instead. Like if you want to play 3 Sabos and 4 Cav, or if you want to play the opposite, go for it, right? So generally speaking, Usopp, the more traditional Dressrosa build, has not changed, I think, since like Japan, like before the restriction list, right? Like December 2024. This has generally been what a lot of builds have looked like. There have been a little bit of changes between what your events look like, but I think that generally speaking, this is the build that works in this current meta. One thing that I was, when I started playing this deck, I did play more Red Rock, but I found that wasn't needed as much. Obviously, it's really good against something like Blackbeard, but it can hold you back. I do really like, though, in this deck is that Gum Gun King Kong Gun gets a lot of value, a lot of value, and not because the double attack. Generally speaking, getting 15 cards in this deck is in our trash is a little bit expensive, but the general thing is that we have so many 1-drops that we just have on the board, mostly because with our leader effect for Usopp, where all of your Dressrosa cards get the +1 cost if they're 2 or more, but mostly the opponent's turn. This effect can be activated when a Dressrosa type character is removed from your field by opponent's effect or KO'd. If you have 5 or less cards in your hand, draw 1, right? So we could at any time like get rid of like a 1-drop Leo or Rebecca, but if it gives our opponent like another card draw for what's generally just a 1-drop 2k, it's not worth their time and not worth giving our opponent that extra value. But in the late game, when we're trying to not lose, Leo can become a 8k attack for 3 Dawn, right? These are essentially 1-drop 5Ks if you want to think of it that way in the late game, as long as you use a King Kong gun. So also the trigger off of life is fantastic. Being able to draw 3 and trash 2 means you're never losing with it, right? Like it's never the worst card out of our life. And you can kind of also, like, if your hand is like completely filled with bricks, it can refresh it and get you enough counter when you weren't expecting to be able to get out of an attack. So Other than that, I think Usopp's in a really interesting spot right now. I've also been seeing a lot of people playing more of like what people are calling like the Sakozuki version of it, which we'll be doing some insights for this week too. But I think this deck's been really strong. I know a lot of people didn't believe in it at the beginning of this format. I thought, especially since it lost some of its better matchups due to the restriction list, but those are still around. I think Usopp's in a good spot, and congratulations to both Christopher and Boris for their finishes with Usopp. And to wrap it up, we've got one more blue and black Dressrosa leader. It is Rebecca, being run by Michael E. R. Cross. I'm going to just straight out say out front, I do not know 100% how to play this deck. It is very complicated. It's very nuanced. You can see all the ratios for it. If you want a better explanation on how to play this deck, I highly recommend checking out Michael's YouTube and Twitter. Those are likely going to have way better resources for it. I'm not, as of recording, I don't think he has anything on his YouTube about this deck specifically, but I'm sure he's going to be making a video this week or so. So make sure to check that out if you want a better explanation. But here is my explanation for the deck. It's complicated. It's a very interesting leader. I know it's one that Michael's been trying to do well with for a very long time, and the fact that we did get a lot of support from for Dressrosa from OP10 for Usopp means that we get a lot of tools for Rebecca specifically too. So if you do not know what this leader does, it's from OP04. It does say this leader cannot attack, but also activate main once per turn for 1 Dawn. If you have 6 or less cards in your hand, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Dressrosa type and add to your hand, then trash the rest. So you are very heavily incentivized to run as many Dressrosa cards as you can, which is generally pretty easy right now when we did just get a new wave of support. We are running 36 Dressrosa cards, so generally speaking, I would not expect your leader effect to really ever miss. And kind of like the original idea for this deck is like, oh, the leader can't attack, but we have the stage, which essentially gives all of our Dressrosa type cards rush against characters for the forever. So we are only playing one copy of the stage though for this, but it also means that we can rest our leader for our effects very easily without like losing any value from it, which I think is strong. So on top of that, so some additional cards that we see, one we do notice that we don't have like a lot of like searchers. We don't have any of the 1-drop Rebecca or the Leo, which generally speaking have been very good for filling up our trash, but also being able to find our Dressrosa cards consistently, which I think is strong. We do have Kyros, which is like the original, like I don't want to say like boss monster, but this card is really obnoxious in this deck. So this character would be KO'd. You may rest your leader 1 Coliseum instead, and also if your leader is Rebecca on play, KO to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less, then trash 1 from the top of your deck. So this means like the original combo is off of Rebecca, you play Kyros, and then if there was some cost reduction, you're able to get rid of a bigger body, right? So we do have like a little bit of cost reduction, right? We have the patchwork, right, being able to be kind of like a Tempest kick, right? We don't get the card draw, but there are like some situations where you can use this to prevent something from attacking on the next turn, so it gets like a 1-turn removal if you want to think of it that way. We do also have like some actual maneuver removal with Zoro, which this card is, I think, straight money in this deck. The fact that you're able to get rid of a 4 or less on play, we get to rest our leader, which doesn't really matter in this deck. So that I think is really, really strong for being able to play on tempo, which is probably why we're only playing 3 copies of Kyros. We are also playing the Scarlet, so this is from EBO1, being able to use this to, you trash the character, play up to 1 Dressrosa character, cost of 3 or less other than Scarlet from your hand rested, then give it to one of your opponent's characters, -2 cost for the turn. So there's also some like weird things like combos you could do. So Rebecca only plays only grabs a 3 to 7, but you can get a 3 or less from your hand rested. So there's some weird times where if you already have Scarlet in your hand, you can Rebecca into Scarlet, use Scarlet's effect to give something an additional -2 cost, and then you can play Kyros that maybe you added to your hand from the Rebecca effect. So I think that's very strong. Monster gets a lot of recycle ability, which is really good. Josu's great in a deck that also has cost reduction. So, right, like you can use something like, oh, I'll use Patchwork, and then this can bounce a 9 or more, 9 or less back into your opponent's hand, which is most cards in the game, which is kind of silly. So, other than that, like the additional cards, I'd say that got value. This is a bit of a unique ad, but I think can be very strong, right? So, when attacking was returned, you return 20 cards from your trash to your deck and shuffle. During this battle, this character gains double attack and plus 10k. So, a lot of value for that. We do have the Barrier, 3000 Worlds, Gravity Blade, right? A lot of removal, but ideally, like, or not ideally, but notably no 7 cost Luffy, which generally speaking, I think was the win condition for a lot of Rebecca builds. So this being more just focused on like hard removal, being able to just ping a lot of damage, right? A lot of decks really can't answer key roast very cleanly, and even if they can, it's usually a little bit expensive. So being able to use like Rebecca to keep bringing it back can help you in a lot of these matchups. And you get some like mildly infinite loops with the fact that you can use Mon-Cherie to be able to recycle your Mon-Cheries back into your deck to be able to get Rebecca back, right? There's a lot of good value you can get from this. And this deck will never like deck out, generally speaking. There are some ways, but Mon-Cherie I think fixes a lot of that. And then also the fact that the deck just can get infinite value, right? The fact that you always get like 2 draw in like the late game with this effect is really good. And it's just black and blue has always been like a really good like toolbox color set that I think Rebecca can take advantage of. So that's my winging it. We'll see if how right I am, but this is definitely a deck that I would not be able to just pick up and play. It's one that takes a lot of sequencing, a lot of understanding for this meta. And congratulations to Michael for their top 32 finish. So other than that, that's going to be it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, this meta I think is really diverse. It's really been really fun to see the different lists and leaders pop up in the last couple weeks, and we still have a couple more weeks left in this one as well. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all next time.